It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
And welcome to Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Alstyne. Coming up this Thursday the 25th, it is the Fest for Beatles Fans, which features or presents a virtual George Harrison birthday celebration. Tickets are a mere $15, a value at any price, $15. The link to get tickets is in the web post and the copy for the podcast episode. Part of this year's celebration is Joey Molland of the legendary power pop band Badfinger. Now, Joey, I'm in Chicago as we're doing this.
Yeah.
That power pop blueprint that you guys helped create has been especially influential here in the Midwest of the United States. When Badfinger was getting revved up, and when you came on with the band, power pop didn't really have a name. How would you describe what you guys were doing back then?
We were just doing kind of beat group music. We were trying to. I joined the band. I come out of a rock and roll rhythm and blues background. Generally, that's the kind of music I like. Chuck Berry and all of that, you know. Beat group music, we called it in Liverpool. And that's what we were doing, really. We were, you know, I was trying to write beat songs, you know, because I wanted to play beat songs. I didn't want to play, you know, well, I loved you for a minute. You know, I mean, I like those kind of songs. There was nothing wrong with them. But to play, I like to play beat music, you know. So that's what we were all trying to do. It so happened that the Ivies, who'd been a beat group in Swansea when they'd started out, had kind of transitioned into a pop music group when they started to write songs, you know what I mean? And they wanted to get back into that beat group world, you know, because I can't tell you how much fun it is to play in a beat group, you know what I mean?
Joey, for people my generation and younger generations, you're part of modern mythology. You're like a Greek god to us. You were there for, you contributed to the foundation of modern rock and roll. So as this interview goes, I hope you don't mind treading over some familiar territory, because this is hearing these stories. Honestly, it's thrilling to us.
It's good to talk about them. I've been talking about this really pretty much all my life since we got successful. And so I'm kind of used to it. And there's always some kind of surprise, you know, that happens. I don't know what it is or how it is, but it does, you know.
Well, let's start with Apple Records, the first non-Beatles band, non-Beatles artist on Apple Records. I've got to think having the Beatles halo around Badfinger was a gift, but I'm sure that also brought a whole lot of pressure on the band.
Well, yeah, it was a tremendous gift and a great aid to us in getting some notoriety. All the bands out there, all the young guys and girls playing and singing and doing it, you know. So it's hard to get a bit of attention. The Beatles liked the songs. You know, Pete Arm and Tommy Evans and Ron Griffith, the bass player, they were already writing songs and, you know, doing their bit. And they were just kind of getting into it, really. And the Beatles liked them, liked what they heard, and signed them to Apple Records. Then the bass player left for some reason or another, and they decided to look for a guitar player, and Tommy went on the bass. You know, he was the guitar player, really, but he wanted to play bass. And so they started looking for a guitar player. I was about the 25th guy, and I got the job. And so we formed a little beat group, and then it was called Badfinger. You know what I mean?
So when you came on, was it just like jumping on a moving train?
Yeah, it was. It was. I didn't know where it was going, but you know, it was great. And you know, it was just exactly what I was looking for. They were really loose with me. They were free with me. They didn't, you know, come on with a bunch of rules or tell me I've got to play like this or do like that or dress like this, or, you know what I mean? So I just kind of fitted myself in there, and you know, I was able to play a little bit of guitar for them and contribute a bit to the actual complete sound of the band. So they liked all of that. And I could write songs. I'd already made records, you know, with another band. Not a lot of records, but I had already written songs, and I brought that to the band with me from a beat group kind of perspective, if you like, you know.
Well, it's no secret McCartney gave you a big songwriting push, or gave the band a big songwriting push. But I get the sense that George was always your key man in the band.
George, I think, eventually, from the Straight Up album onwards, for sure, was started to get involved with the band. I think he was a lot more involved with than I was even aware of at the time. You know, we'd made No Dice, no matter what had been a big hit for us. Come and Get It, the Paul McCartney song, was a big hit. They recorded that before I even joined,
right.
You know, and the bass player left before it came out. Is that weird? Is that weird, huh?
That's a decision you might, in hindsight, regret. Yeah. You know, as we're talking about this Fest for Beatles Fans, which is happening on Thursday, the 25th, what's your lasting impression of George, A, as an artist, and B, as a person?
We found him to be a sweetheart as a person, and he was a great artist. You know, he'd been with the Beatles for all those years, making all those guitar bits up, hearing the songs that they'd been writing, because those two guys, McCartney and Lennon, were unbelievable, really. When you think of that period and the number of songs and how great they were, it was something else. So what a great time to grow up and, you know what I mean, get all that coming down the pipe to you. So I've forgotten the question now. I just get like into that.
George Harrison.
Yeah. So George, he was really nice. You know, he wasn't like a big rock star or anything. He was the guitar player in the Beatles, the biggest band ever. But he wasn't like a god or, you know, anything like that. I was a big fan, a tremendous Beatle fan. And so I found it very difficult to be around him, because he was a Beatle. I couldn't get over that. It wasn't like I could go, oh, he's not a Beatle, he's George Harrison. You know, I couldn't think like that. He was a Beatle and he was great. When he played the guitar, he made sense on it. You know what I mean? You never really heard him go diddly, 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 diddly. You know, he always he'd play along with what was happening and he'd come up with a bit of a part for himself, you know?
Well, how did he find his way into Day After Day?
Well, he was producing the record. You know, he'd heard the songs before. I think Pete had actually gone round to his house and they'd gone over songs. But he was producing us and he thought about the arrangements. We did the acoustic background and the drums, a little bit of bass, no electric guitar at all, and no piano. And we played along. He came up with the backing vocals, the harmony parts. Pete and I were playing the slide guitar in it because we both played slide, and we were working out, you know, parts and stuff. And George came in the studio and asked us, this is the kind of guy he was, is it okay if I play guitar?
And you said, no, how dare you?
Well, no, I did the exact opposite. I took my strat off and gave it him. Go ahead, man, go ahead, you know. And he was great. He went to work with Pete. And once he settled in, that was hours went by. You know, he's serious about what he was doing. You know, he didn't want something nearly what he wanted, you know. He wanted what he wanted, and it was great, and it's a beautiful guitar part. They did it live. Incidentally, you know, they did those guitars together. They didn't do one at a time. They played both those slide parts together, which is a very difficult thing to do. You know, to play in tune, slide, it's difficult, man, you know.
You know, when we think of the four of you together, Pete Ham, Tom Evans, Mike Gibbons, you, the harmonies, just peak Badfinger, those early 70s, just an indestructible sounding band. What do you take away memory-wise as you look back on that, mainly that hit-making period of the early 70s?
All of it, really, because you never forget it. You never forget making the records, and if you think about a particular song, your memory automatically kind of goes like that and opens up the picture. So doing that stuff, we learned a lot from working with those guys. We learned about singing our harmonies all together, not overdubbing them one at a time, which is what, you know, we would have done. We learned about, you know, playing those things. They allowed us to work on the songs, you know, in the studio. wasn't like we had to have it all together. You know, so we were given an hour or two or whatever it took to work out that first backtrack. You know, 2 electric guitars, bass and drums in most cases, and rough vocal, you know. But like the drum fills were live, the bass part was live, the rhythm electric guitar was usually live, you know. And then we'd go back and we'd overdub the leads and stuff like that. We all learned a lot about making rhythm guitar parts, so, you know, lead guitar parts, solos, and then harmonies, singing harmonies. And we'd work all those things out while we were working the tune out. And they were, you know, they were nice enough, Apple I'm talking about, to give us that time, no matter if we were an Olympic or Abbey Road, you know, or Apple or, you know, Trident, just one of the studios in London town. And they're the great things. I remember, like, you know, playing bass on Believe Me, things like that, you know, where I would normally play guitar on stuff. We'd do our acoustic tracks together, you know. It was a lot. It was great fun, man. Just great fun.
We mentioned Pete Ham. How can you not? Baby Blue is such an indelible song in Badfinger history and music history, which got a completely new life 8 years ago as the closing song of one of the greatest TV series of all time, Breaking Bad. It was also in The Departed. What a thrill it must be for you to have the song cycle back through popular culture and reach an entirely new audience.
It is, yeah. It really is fantastic. You know, it's amazing. How does that happen? You know, we recorded the song, 4 guys. We went back in and overdubbed an acoustic on it. That's all. And then did the vocals, and it came out, and it's been out ever since. Ever since. It hasn't never gone away. It's been on the radio all over the world ever since it came out. I don't know what that means. I know that we had a great time doing it, even though Todd Rundgren was the producer, and he was a monster to work with.
I was going to ask about that because George started the production on the album, and then did the Concert for Bangladesh pull him off of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what happened, John.
Okay, so Rundgren took over. I got the sense that perhaps you weren't a fan of Todd back then, but clearly time heals all wounds. I mean, you went on tour doing Beatles music with Todd not all that long ago.
Oh, yeah. We did that 2 years ago. I met Todd. Well, he was awkward to work with. He was very domineering, and he had a huge ego going along with that, you know. And he was very good and very brilliant. You know, the album he produced and mixed and everything was the biggest album we ever did. It's not necessarily the most popular with our fans, but it's the biggest album we ever did. It sold the most, had 2 top 10 records on it.
Right.
He just took away the tapes. You know, we did the rest of the songs with him. He recorded us and did all that. And he took away the tapes, and Straight Up album came back. And it sounded lovely. You know, which is exactly what Apple wanted and EMI wanted and what the Beatles wanted. You know, they wanted us to do like an Abbey Road record, you know, and we were going to do like some kind of crude little beat crew record, you know. That's where we were at, you know. So we actually did make the record early. We gave it an Apple in New York said, "Oh, we don't like this. It's too crude, man." You know,
so hearing your description of Todd and also your description of George Harrison before it, coming off of George Harrison, who sounded like just a really laid back guy, Todd sounds like a shock to the system.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'd never heard of him for the start. You know, he wasn't real big in England or anything. I think he'd only had a couple of hits in America, but he was known for his ears. He was known as a producer, as a you know, an engineer kind of guy, an arranger and all that. He had all that going with him. George had met him, I think, when he met the band and all that. You know, all that Brownsville, not Brownsville, but the
Bearsville.
Big Pink. Yeah, Bearsville, exactly, yeah. And so, you know, George really liked him and recommended him highly, so we went along with it, but he was difficult to deal with. He really was.
Thinking about George Harrison and life outside of Badfinger, We talked about Concert for Bangladesh. There you were on stage with George Harrison doing Here Comes the Sun half a century ago. Yeah, can you remember your emotions from that performance, that moment in time?
Yeah, I was in awe. We had the horns, Jim Horn and the LA horns. Leon Russell playing the piano right here. Eric Clapton playing the guitar right there. George Harrison standing next to him. Klaus Voorman and Billy Preston sitting on the opposite side of the stage. And Ringo and Jim Keltner up on the drum risers. They had a stream of background singers you wouldn't believe. All of them famous people, all famous background singers, or singers in their own right, lead singers, if you like. It was really exciting. Ravi was really exciting. Bob Dylan was there. Just incredible surroundings. I mean, I was in awe of it. It was amazing. I'm glad he asked Peter to play the acoustic with him on Here Comes the Sun. And Peter got it together, did a great job. It's funny when you go and watch the film, George doesn't look at Peter at all when he's playing the song. They look out that way. It's kind of weird. And I don't think he says, this is Peter, I'm from Badfinger. I don't think he says that.
What an interesting time. I mean, that album won the Grammy for Album of the Year. I mean, I can't, and this is a snapshot of all these musicians, yourself included, at the peak of their powers. But I can't imagine an album like that getting a Grammy for Album of the Year in the present day. It seemed like such a special moment back then.
It was, yeah. It was, George doing it was a special thing. The Beatles were kind of gone, weren't they? The Beatles had broken up. He hadn't played with anybody. He'd done the record, All Things Must Pass, My Sweet Lord, and
you were on that record too.
We'd played on that record with him. And when he was asked to do something to help those people, he didn't really know what to do. And he went to New York and talked to his manager, Alan Klein, I guess. And between them, they put together the idea of having that concert, big occasion, make a record, maybe make a film, and all the money could go to the children, which is what happened. So it was just a great occasion. And when the record came out, everybody knew it was all for charity, the whole affair. And there would be a film coming out. The concerts had been great, gotten great reviews. George had just asked all the people who played on his record to come and play on his concert.
Right.
It was great. And everybody said, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, of course. So it was just great. We went to New York, rehearsed at the Steinway building. You don't forget this stuff. We went to Madison Square Garden on the Saturday to dress rehearse. And we had the whole band then. Even Eric Clapton showed up that day. And we did our sound check and we were finished waiting for the cars to come and take us back to the hotels. And we're sitting there and Bob Dylan walked on stage and we were just sitting in the auditorium, Bob Dylan walks up on stage with his acoustic and his harmonica on and just a mic for himself and starts playing It's All Right, Man, it's all over now, baby, look. It ain't no use to sit and wonder why, baby. You know what I mean? He just stood up there and started singing the songs. So for like 45 minutes or something, we were like, well, that's Bob Dylan. He came in the dressing room the next day. These are the things that were happening, around it, all around. It was incredible. Really amazing. Dylan came in the dressing room the next day. The whole band was sitting in there, all of us. And the whole band the whole room went quiet. Everybody stopped talking.
You mean like Clapton and Harrison? Were
everybody stopped talking, yeah. Everybody was aware of everybody else and nervous of everybody else. None of them thought they were that great. George didn't think he was that great. Eric Clapton didn't walk around going, I'm the greatest guitar player in the world. He didn't think like that. The only, like people like Billy Preston are like little balls of sunshine in your life. They really are incredible. And he is that great. And everybody in the room knows it. You know what I mean? He's always been that great. Just great, like Ringo and Keltner, the absolute masters of what they do, you know what I mean? Leon is the same on the piano. Jim Horn I watched Jim Horn play a sax solo in a song, a Badfinger song. He played it, I think, 12, 13 times in a row. Every solo was different, and every solo was great. The guy is a complete master, and that's what they're like. It's just fantastic to watch, and you kind of rubs off on you a little bit. You learn things when you watch them doing it, and they talk about it, and they come over and show you the guitars that they just got, that they made up with. That's what they're excited about, It's just a fantastic thing. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
Listen, we're all starstruck by the notion of the Beatles and Dylan and Clapton, but as we're telling these stories, I don't want to diminish how great Badfinger is. Like, I mean, you were contemporaries. You were right. You're right up there, right in there.
It turned out we were a really pretty good band. We wrote the best songs we could, and recorded them as good as we could, and we had a lot of help doing that, as you know. So thank you very much. Thanks very much. But well, no buts about it. The records are still on the radio, so I guess that that's that. You know what I mean?
Staying on the Beatles tip for one more second, you personally played on some of the most iconic solo albums of all time. You played on the Imagine album for John Lennon. You played on All Things Must Pass, which I mentioned. You were on Jealous Guy, which was never a single for Lennon.
No. Beautiful little song, though.
I mean, you hear it in the present day and you think, oh, that's it. That's a definitive song. But back in the day, that was an album cut.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how good Imagine is. That was just an album track. That was a deep cut back in the day.
Yeah.
And then All Things Must Pass. You were on My Sweet Lord and What Is Life. Do you have any memories coming out of those sessions?
Only the George, coming over to us and teaching us the song, and like Clapton rehearsing his bits and pieces, his licks, working them out for the songs. Ringo seemed to have everything now, he just had it, so Billy Preston was the same. They just had their parts. They knew where they wanted to go with it. And, Ringo would have his fills, Klaus Voorman. He'd make the bass parts up. But they're all parts, They all took the time to work out their parts. They didn't jam the music. They played the music. They made it up and then they played it, So all of those things are, you're in a room, 20 by 30. And they're great, they just do it. You do 3 takes. You don't do 6 or 8 or 10 or 15 or 20. Maybe they did with their own bands and stuff. But when we were doing that kind of work, it was like 3 takes. Everybody kind of got the stuff together.
I think about in the present day, the way music is made, artists are congratulated for putting out albums 2 or 3 years apart from one another. I mean, back in peak Badfinger era, back in the Beatles era, it was every year. Albums were like these legendary, iconic performances. These recordings happened. It was an annual event. It's such a different time.
Yeah.
Because that just doesn't happen anymore.
It's weird, isn't it? If I had a big hit record now, I'd be probably in the studio next week, starting to work on a new record. We did that every time we came off the road, because we'd come out, the record would come out, we'd go on the road, do like 6 months, you know what I mean? 3 months in America, and then, the rest of the world, Europe and that. And then when we got back to England, while we were away on the road, you play the show, you write songs, things happen, you get ideas when you go to places. So you write songs, and when you get back there, you go back into rehearsal. You have a bit of time off, I suppose, but you go back into rehearsal, or I've got an idea, what about this one? You know what I mean? So you hear the ideas and all like that, and they get in with you, you know what I mean? Or, you just do it. It's what you do when you're in a group. Right. You know what I mean? You don't go out dancing. You know what I mean? You don't, and you find your girlfriend and you have a girlfriend and, you live a normal life, and that's getting up and playing the guitar for a musician, songwriter,
This is some of your Liverpool work ethic, clearly.
Well, you've got to work, man. Nobody's going to pay your rent for you. Nobody's going to pay your bills. And if you want that jacket, you've got to work. You know what I mean? So,
we talked about how your songs are still on the radio all these years later, which is a fine testament to the band. I think another fine testament is let's talk about Without You, which has been turned into big records for other artists.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that these songs are being covered and they're exploding in other directions than you ever possibly could have imagined. Nielsen, Mariah Carey. That's going to be interesting to hear when you heard those covers for the first time.
Yeah, it's stunning. Nielsen was very, very impressive. He came and introduced himself to us. He was in Air London, and he'd done the Without You song. We didn't know about it at all, had no idea. When he came to see us, he knew we were recording there. And he was mixing in the same, studios. We didn't know. And he came down to see us. He said, do me a favor, come and listen to this mix we've just done. We've been mixing it for hours and we can't tell anymore if it's right, things. So, and that's what happens when you're mixing, that. Sure. You get tired, your ears get tired. So we went down there with him. Great, it's a great honor, isn't it? Harry Nielsen coming and asking you to go and have a listen. So we went down there and he played Without You to us. And of course it was his version. It was great. We did a little kind of bluesy Nordic version of it. Our manager, he'd been telling us, Bill Collins, our personal manager, not the crook, but Bill.
Right.
He'd been telling us for years, since we'd done Without You, that we should do a big version of it, with an orchestra and everything, and do a big number on it, And Pete would always say this, we're not that kind of band. We don't do that kind of stuff. So we never did it like that. And Nielsen got the Grammy.
Of course. Yeah, the tragedies of the band are well documented. And mental health is a topic that we keep coming back to during the pandemic. And it's important to keep the conversation going. And we all know the story about how Pete and Tom killed themselves many years ago. I don't want to rehash that, but as someone who has experienced the suicide deaths of two bandmates, what do you say to people who are listening or watching right now who might be struggling? We're in this weird time where things are just harder. What do you say to someone who's wrestling with mental health issues? I
feel for you. I really feel for you. I've had a bit of depression myself. I'm not a depressive person, but I've had my periods when I felt bad, and you want to shut down, but just bear with it, bear with it. You've got to bear with it. You know what I mean? We're all with you. I mean it, we're all with you. And I think nowadays maybe there's a bit more understanding about this stuff.
Yeah.
So stick with it. Stick with it just that one more day. Just one more day. It's only a day. It's only, you know what I mean? You can do it tomorrow, one more day, Stay with it. You've only got to live that one more day at a time. If you believe it, the Lord's going to be with you, You've got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose,
Thank you for that. Looking ahead to where you're at, I mean, we talked about this. You're virtually going to be part of the Fest for Beatles Fans on Thursday. Tickets are $15. The link is in the podcast and the video text. You're still doing solo stuff. You're working on stuff. I mean, I think you just broke away for a couple minutes to chat with me, but you're busy, right?
Yeah, I do things. Yeah, I actually put a new record out. Came out in October. Got great reviews all over the world, and it's kind of selling along. It's not. I don't know how records sell nowadays, so it's selling a few here, a few there. A radio station in New York voted it album of the year or put it in their top 10 albums of the year. It was great fun. Mark Hudson produced it. So I am, it's just great. And all these guys came and played. It was lovely. Mickey Dolenz came and sang with it. Jason Sheff, he's the lead singer in Chicago, or he was now, he's not anymore. And Julian Lennon came, for crying out loud, and sang with us. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, Steve Holly played drums for us. It was lovely, man. Making a record is a fantastic thing to do. I'll make another one if I get the chance. It'll probably be different than this one. But you write your songs and you get to work with great people. I love it. So I do that all the time. And when I'm not doing myself, I like to work with other musicians. I'm doing a fellow named Brian Gentries right now. We've got 7 songs done, and we're going to do 10. And then he's going to put it out as his album. And I think it's sounding really pretty good. It's coming to life, and the songs are working. And Brian's a beautiful cat, so what are you going to do,
I think that's awesome. And, we love you here in Chicago, and we get to see you virtually as part of the Fest for Beatles Fans, a virtual George Harrison birthday celebration. That is Thursday. Tickets are $15. I should mention some of the other people who will be there. Peter Asher of Peter and Gordon, Klaus Voorman, the guy who did the Revolver cover, Billy J. Kramer, British Invasion guy.
Right on, yeah.
And a locally beloved disc jockey, Terri Hemmert, will be doing some of the hosting job. She's a fantastic human being, too. Like I said, we love you. Thank you so much for doing this, Joey.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for Chicago. I love it there. I come there and play there. I've been playing there for the last 40 years. I come through and play the gigs, play the little ones and the big ones, and I have a great time. Just a great time. It's a great city, great guitar shops.
That's true.
Just great artists. The chess studios there. Just to go down there and at last, that song. What was the girl's name?
Is that Etta James?
Etta James, yeah. They play it to you in the studio, in the actual studio, not the control room. It's absolutely fantastic.
See, this is something that bugs me. I think that Chess Studio should be a bigger landmark in Chicago. It's kind of like a footnote when you're driving by in the city. It should be, when you pass Sun Records in Memphis, that's Sun Records. I feel like Chess needs, this is my soapbox, Chess needs a greater spotlight on it, because, the Rolling Stones, when they first came to America, that's the first place they wanted to go to, was Chess Records. The influence and shadow of that studio and that label, insane.
It's a heck of a thing you got, isn't it?
It is.
You got it there, man,
So, all right, to plan ahead for your next visit to Chicago, I want you to eat light, because we're gonna fatten you up when you come here. That's what we do for visitors in Chicago. All right, good. We're gonna feed you well.
My son Sean lives in Chicago.
Oh, really? Okay, so you know how we eat here.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and he's a cook.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you definitely know.
Well, hey, thank you very much for having me, and have a listen to my new record. You might like it, and it's called "Be True to Yourself." It's great, man. Life is good.